3 days before my wedding, I woke up with a heart full of excitement. The sun streamed through the cream-colored curtains of my hotel suite, casting a golden glow over the room. Everything felt perfect, or so I thought. My name is Amara, a 28-year-old software entrepreneur from Lagos, Nigeria. Just a few years ago, I was barely surviving, working endless shifts at a small internet cafe while coding late into the night. Then, my app took off, a financial planning platform designed for small businesses in Africa. By the time I was 26, investors were chasing me, and I found myself sitting on a fortune. My net worth now stood at a staggering $79 million. Yet, despite my wealth, my heart remained grounded. That's why when I met Chike Obi, I didn't tell him about the money right away. He was kind, charming, and ambitious in his own right, running a modest construction company. For the first year of our relationship, we built our bond on trust, or so I believed. We were set to get married in a lavish ceremony in Abuja. My parents adored him, and his family seemed welcoming, especially his mother, Mrs. Obi, a regal woman with a sharp tongue, and his father, Chief Obi, a stern, calculating man. I thought we were blending our families beautifully. But that morning, something felt off. The wedding preparations were in full swing. The smell of fried plantains and jollof rice wafted from the kitchen, mingling with the floral scent of the elaborate decorations. Bridesmaids laughed as they tried on their matching aso-ebi dresses. Then, a knock came at my door. It was Chike, looking unusually serious. "Amara," he said, avoiding my eyes. "My parents want to speak with you. It's urgent." A small pit formed in my stomach. Urgent? 3 days before our wedding? I followed him to a private lounge in the hotel. His parents were seated there, their expressions unreadable. A sleek black folder lay on the table between them. Mrs. Obi smiled tightly. "Amara, my dear. Please, sit." I sat, my palms slightly damp. Chief Obi cleared his throat. "We need to discuss something very important before the wedding can proceed." He slid the folder toward me. "This is a prenuptial agreement. It's standard practice in our family. We want to make sure everything is secure." My heart thudded. A prenup? Now? I opened the folder. The document was thick, full of legal jargon, but the key points were crystal clear. If Chike and I divorced, or if he died, I would walk away with nothing. Worse, it required me to sign over any shares or assets I owned to a trust managed by the Obi family. I felt my throat tighten. This isn't fair. Mrs. Obi's smile never faltered. "It's just business, darling. You know how people can take advantage of families with wealth. We have to protect our son." I wanted to laugh at the irony. They think they're protecting him from me? But Chike didn't meet my gaze. He just stood there, silent. "Chike," I said softly, "you knew about this?" He hesitated. "It's just a formality, Amara. Please, sign it so we can move forward. My parents won't feel comfortable unless you do." A wave of betrayal crashed over me. In that moment, I had a choice, 'cause a scene or play it cool. I swallowed my anger and forced a small smile. "I understand," I said, closing the folder. "But I'll need time to read this carefully before signing." Chief Obi nodded curtly. "Of course. But understand, Amara, if this isn't signed before the wedding day, there will be no wedding." His words were like a dagger to my chest. I left the room calmly, but inside, a storm was brewing. Back in my suite, I paced the floor, replaying the scene over and over. How dare they spring this on me now? Did they really see me as some gold digger after their wealth? The truth was, they had no idea about my fortune. I'd kept my financial status private, even from Chike. I wanted him to love me for who I was, not my bank account. But now, everything felt tainted. I grabbed my phone and called my lawyer, Ifeoma, a sharp, no-nonsense woman who had been with me since my early business days. She answered on the first ring. Ifeoma, I need you in Abuja immediately, I said, my voice trembling. It's urgent. What's going on? She asked. My fiancé's family just hit me with a prenup, 3 days before the wedding. There was a pause. Send me a copy. I'll be on the next flight. That night, I sat alone, staring out at the glittering city lights. My mind raced. If they think I'm some desperate girl, they're about to learn a very hard lesson. I wasn't just going to fight back. I was going to expose the truth. The next morning, Ifeoma arrived, her briefcase in hand. She read through the prenup, her brow furrowing deeper with each page. This isn't just unfair, she said finally. It's predatory. If you sign this, you'd essentially hand over your entire life to them. Exactly, I said, my voice cold. But they don't know who they're dealing with. I explained my plan to her, every detail precise and calculated. Amara, she said, a hint of admiration in her tone, this is brilliant. Risky, but brilliant. 2 days before the wedding, I requested a private meeting with the Obi family. When I walked into the room, I was composed, even smiling. Chaik looked relieved, thinking I had decided to comply. I've reviewed the agreement, I said calmly, placing the folder on the table. And I've decided to sign. Mrs. Obi's face lit up with victory. However, I continued, my tone sharpening, before I do, there are a few clauses I'd like to add. Ifeoma handed out copies of a revised document. The Obis scanned it quickly, confusion flickering across their faces. These clauses protect me in the event of divorce or death, I explained smoothly. After all, marriage is a partnership, is it not? Chief Obi's jaw tightened. This is unnecessary. Oh, but so is springing a prenup on me 3 days before the wedding, I countered. For the first time, Mrs. Obi's mask slipped. Chaik finally spoke. Amara, maybe we can talk about this privately. No, I cut him off. This affects all of us. Everything must be transparent. I stood tall, looking directly at his parents. Here's the truth you don't know, I said, my voice steady. I am not after your family's money. I have $79 million of my own. The room went silent. Mrs. Obi's mouth fell open. Chief Obi blinked rapidly, clearly trying to process my words. You, what? Chaik stammered. I kept it private because I wanted to be loved for who I am, not for what I have, I said, my voice trembling slightly. But now, you've shown me exactly what you value. The shock on their faces was almost satisfying. Almost. But I wasn't done. If this prenup isn't destroyed by tomorrow, I continued, the wedding is off. And I will ensure that everyone knows why. Including the press. Ifeoma placed a neatly typed press release on the table, just to drive the point home. Chief Obi's hands shook as he reached for the original prenup, tearing it to shreds. We were only trying to protect our son, he muttered. Then start by protecting his relationship, I said coldly. That night, Chaik came to my suite, looking distraught. Amara, please, you have to understand, he pleaded. My parents were just scared. I love you. I didn't want any of this. I stared at him, my heart aching. But you stayed silent while they tried to trap me. Do you know how that feels? He hung his head. I was afraid of losing you. Chaik, I said softly, sometimes love isn't about fear. It's about trust. And right now, I don't know if I can trust you. The day of the wedding arrived, and with it, a whirlwind of emotions. Guests filled the grand hall, dressed in vibrant colors. Laughter and music filled the air, but beneath the joy was a layer of tension. As I prepared to walk down the aisle, I felt strangely calm. I had made my decision. When the officiant asked if anyone objected to the union, I stepped forward before anyone else could speak. "Before we proceed," I said, my voice carrying through the hall, "there's something I need to say." I turned to face the crowd, my family, and Chaik's stunned parents. 3 days ago, my future in-laws tried to force me to sign a prenuptial agreement that would have stripped me of everything, I said clearly. Gasps echoed through the hall. I took a deep breath. But what they didn't know is that I am the one with the wealth. I have $79 million to my name. And yet, I never asked for a single kobo from them. The murmurs grew louder. This marriage was supposed to be built on love and trust, I continued. But if that trust is broken before we even say I do, what kind of future would we have? I turned to Chaik, tears welling in my eyes. I love you, but I cannot marry into a family that sees me as a threat instead of a partner. With that, I removed my veil and handed it to my maid of honor. The hall erupted into chaos as I walked out, head held high. The days that followed were difficult. My phone buzzed nonstop with calls and messages, some supportive, others filled with anger or disbelief. Chaik tried to reach me repeatedly, but I needed space. Eventually, he came to see me in person, looking worn and broken. "Amara," he said softly, "I've spoken to my parents. They realize how wrong they were. I realize how wrong I was." I studied him carefully. "Do you love me for me, Chaik? Or for what I represent?" He fell silent, and in that silence, I had my answer. I shook my head gently. Sometimes, walking away is the only way to protect yourself. I wish you well, truly. But I deserve a love built on trust. Months later, I focused fully on my business and myself. The experience taught me a painful but invaluable lesson. Wealth can reveal the true nature of people, but it also gives you the power to choose who you allow into your life. When I spoke at a women's conference later that year, I shared my story, not as a tale of betrayal, but as a reminder. Never let fear or manipulation decide your future, I told the audience. And never underestimate your own worth. Protect your heart as fiercely as you protect your dreams. The applause was thunderous. As I walked off the stage, I felt lighter. I had lost a fiancé, yes, but I had gained clarity, strength, and freedom. And that, I realized, was worth far more than any wedding. The morning of the wedding dawned with a strange stillness. The sky was a brilliant shade of blue, yet heavy clouds seemed to loom in my heart. Family members and guests bustled around the venue, their laughter and chatter mingling with the rhythmic beat of the talking drums. The scent of pepper soup and smoky jollof rice drifted through the air. To everyone else, this was the happiest day of my life. To me, it was a day of reckoning. I stood in the bridal suite, gazing at my reflection. The white lace gown clung perfectly to my figure, its intricate embroidery shimmering under the light. My maid of honor, Adiz, fussed with my veil. "You look like a queen," she said, smiling. I tried to smile back, but my heart was pounding. "Thank you, Ada. But today isn't about how I look." She frowned. "Amara, are you sure about what you're planning to do?" "It's risky." I met her gaze in the mirror. Sometimes, the truth has to be spoken, no matter the cost. As the ceremony began, the hall was breathtaking. Gold drapes framed the stage, and vibrant flower arrangements adorned every table. Guests murmured with excitement as the traditional music faded into silence. Chaik stood at the altar, looking handsome in his cream agbada, though his eyes betrayed nervousness. His parents sat in the front row, their expressions smug and expectant. I walked down the aisle slowly, each step echoing in my ears. My father's arm was steady, his face beaming with pride. But when we reached the altar, instead of turning toward Chaik, I turned to face the crowd. "Before we proceed," I said loudly, my voice carrying through the hall, "there's something I must say." Gasps rippled through the audience. Even the officiant froze, unsure of what was happening. I took a deep breath, my hands trembling slightly, but my voice remained steady. 3 days ago, my future in-laws presented me with a prenuptial agreement. An agreement designed to take everything from me in the event of a divorce or death. Whispers erupted instantly. Guests exchanged shocked glances, some covering their mouths. I glanced at Chaik's parents. Their faces had turned pale, their composure cracking. What they didn't know, I continued, my tone sharpening, is that I am the one with the wealth. I built a company from the ground up. I have $79 million to my name. But I never mentioned this because I wanted to be loved for who I am, not for what I own. Gasps grew louder. This marriage was supposed to be built on trust and love, I said, my voice breaking slightly. But if that trust is broken before we even say I do, what future do we really have? I turned to Chaik. His eyes were wide, his lips trembling. Chaik, I whispered, tears stinging my eyes, I love you deeply. But when your parents tried to trap me, you stayed silent. You let me fight alone. And I can't marry into a family where silence means betrayal. I removed my veil and handed it to Adiz. The hall was completely silent, the weight of my decision sinking in. With my head held high, I walked down the aisle, not as a bride, but as a woman reclaiming her dignity. Behind me, I heard chaos erupt. Mrs. Obi crying out, Chief Obi shouting, Chaik begging me to stop. But I didn't look back. Some exits are more powerful than any vow. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions. My phone buzzed nonstop, family members, friends, even journalists wanting to know what had happened. Some messages were filled with love and support. Others were harsh, accusing me of humiliating Chaik and his family. I stayed quiet, focusing on myself. Chaik came to see me 3 days later. He looked nothing like the confident man I'd fallen in love with. His clothes were wrinkled, his face tired, his eyes red from lack of sleep. Amara, he said softly, almost pleading. Please, just hear me out. I said nothing, letting him speak. My parents, they've apologized. They were wrong, and I was wrong too. His voice cracked. I should have defended you. I should have trusted you. But I was scared. Scared of losing you, scared of disappointing them. I stared at him, my heart heavy. Do you even know how it felt, Chaik? To stand there while they accused me of being after your wealth, when in reality, I had more than they could imagine? Tears welled in his eyes. I know I don't deserve you. But please, don't let this be the end. I took a deep breath, fighting back my own tears. Chaik, love isn't just about feelings. It's about trust, respect, and partnership. You didn't fight for me when it mattered most. He reached for my hand, but I stepped back. I need to protect myself, I said quietly. And sometimes, protecting yourself means walking away. His shoulders sagged, and I knew he understood. This isn't goodbye forever, I added gently. But it's goodbye for now. If we're meant to be, life will bring us back together. Months passed. I poured my energy into my company, expanding it into new countries. The betrayal still hurt, but each day I grew stronger. One afternoon, I was invited to speak at a women's entrepreneurship conference in Lagos. As I stood on stage, looking out at hundreds of women, I shared my story, not as gossip, but as a lesson. 3 days before my wedding, I was given a document meant to take away my power. But instead, it gave me clarity. It showed me who I could trust, and who I couldn't. The room was silent, hanging on my every word. Never let anyone make you feel small because of what you have, or what you don't have, I said firmly. Your worth is not determined by a signature on a piece of paper, but by how fiercely you protect your dreams and your heart. The audience erupted into applause, some women even standing to cheer. Later that evening, I walked off the stage feeling lighter. I hadn't just walked away from a wedding, I'd walked toward my true self. Wealth, love, and family are powerful forces, but none of them matter without trust. As I left the venue, my phone buzzed with a message from Chaik. "I'm proud of you." For the first time, I smiled, not because of him, but because I finally knew my worth. Some love stories end at the altar. Mine began the moment I chose myself.